It's a pleasure to be here, and I think it's a very interesting topic to talk about. Simplicity and how that really, what's the power of simplicity. I don't have a presentation, I'll just be talking, and hopefully we'll have time to take a few questions. But I think what's important is to give a sense of the story and the journey, because a lot of that is learnings that have built up over the last many, many years. 2009 is when Samir and I came back to start our first business in the healthcare technology space. It was a software platform for doctors. What we set out to do actually is the same thing that we are doing now. The objective did not change, which was we thought healthcare needs to change and it needs to become more accessible, affordable, and understandable for the consumer. What was the problem we are solving? It was the problem of this being too complex, too opaque, and creating a dynamic or a system that was actually not working for the consumer, or still is not really working for the consumer. That created a lot of opportunity. That part was visible to us outside in. That is, when we were thinking of what is the change that needs to happen. The bigger the complexity, the bigger the opportunity. That's kind of the way it moves. And healthcare is one of the most complex systems out there. And a lot of people, when you start talking that we are trying to work in the healthcare space, the first answer you get is it's very complicated. I think that is the opportunity. If it were simple, it would have been solved anyway. So to us, that was super exciting that yes, this is a complicated space. Simplicity is actually what we need to find and build. Now, why is it complicated? It's what is healthcare? So again, first principle approach, if you take to a lot of things, you understand that at the end of the day, it's about a person who is not well, who needs to get well and perform to his or her full potential. Now, that's what is the entire business of healthcare, or it should be about. However, over the last many, many years, not only in India, but globally, you've seen different models kind of emerge with a lot of intermediaries, everybody adding additional layers of complexity, and opacity actually being the driver for a lot of business models. So we thought this was very, very interesting. Now, huge vested interests, big opacity, all of that. But at the core of it, is it working for the consumer for whom healthcare needs to work? And is there a better way of doing things? Our first approach, and I think that's a great lesson because it did not work out, was we went into the market again thinking like a lot of players would do, who would look at it more from a business perspective rather than a customer perspective. We made the mistake as well. We thought healthcare is controlled by doctors and providers. Let us create a software for doctors. Through that software, we'll connect with consumers, and then we will start trying to build everything that we want for the consumer using that channel. Turned out that there was a disconnect in our business model. We wanted to solve the consumer's problem, but our customer was the doctor. And while we tried that model for a full year, we got some 50 doctors working on our platform, that, we connected with consumers through that. But we realized that the consumers don't really trust us as a platform. We are seen as a software provider to the doctor. And we are not really connecting with any consumer in a meaningful way. So we relooked at our model that if we really want to connect directly with the consumer, if all the solutions that we want to offer are to the consumer, then why are we going this roundabout way? Why are we assuming that this industry works in this way and it will always work in this one way? Why not create a model to directly engage with the consumer? And I think the fundamental change that we perceived at that point also was this entire healthcare ecosystem was moving to a model where consumers wanted more control and power. The trust deficit was going up in the ecosystem, very apparent. Consumers wanted more participation and control. And I think the bigger the trust deficit, the bigger the opportunity to be a trusted platform. That was the fundamental thought process in our mind, that, okay, we've been kind of going about it in a wayward fashion, that first we build everything for a doctor, then through the doctor we acquire a consumer, then we build things for the consumer. Let's cut it down, let's go direct. Now, phase one was, again, what we learned in the marketplace, which was that let's start with the base level problem, access to healthcare products. Now, nutrition products is what we at HealthCart finally ended up doubling down on. Why were we relevant? Why are we still relevant? And all those questions are actually answered by asking the same simple questions. Are we solving somebody's problem? Again, when we started HealthCart, we started it as a broad-based healthcare store. And the problem that we were solving actually was what typical e-commerce does, access. And very soon we realized that for a lot of the categories, we were undifferentiated. It made no difference whether a consumer is buying from our platform or Amazon or Flipkart or any other. Now, what is our reason for existence? Are we solving any consumer's problem a little more deeper? That's when, from access, the conversation moved towards authenticity. And authenticity was a pain point in one particular category, which was nutrition. And I think we were fortunate that we found that opportunity. But more than that, we were, I think, rigorous in looking for that opportunity, or we had kind of identified that playing a commodity game is not what is going to build HealthCart as a healthcare or a nutrition company. So what was the problem in nutrition? Supplements, I don't know if you guys use, but more than 50% of what is sold in the country is fake or suspect. That was a big pain point. A typical marketplace experience does not solve for that. And we went deeper into that particular one sector. We built deep relationships with every single brand, right up to their global corporate office in the US, Europe, or wherever they might come from. We developed our own range of nutrition supplement products, et cetera, et cetera. And today, HealthCart is a self-sustaining, profitable nutrition company that has its own position in the market just because it stood for solving some simple pain point that existed. But I think the core thing is you need to know the reason for your existence, and then you need to build yourself to solve that. There was a lot of, I would say we went through so many phases where there was GMV was the buzzword, and one would want to see, can we build our GMV better? Can we participate in large categories just to get numbers that will never build a customer base or our identity? And all of that was complexity. Our organization was getting bigger. We were entering categories that did not make sense. We cut down almost 8-9 categories and ended up with just one. That one category literally took off. Now, why does it happen? It's keeping things simple at the end of it. So it was a 3-4 year journey of learning, and that kind of figured out the business model in our first business. Then the second thing is, how did 1mg happen? Again, very, very simple thing. While working with doctors, we had created the first digital database of medicines in the country. The only thing surprising or particularly surprising to us at that point was that unlike the developed markets, in India, for the same salt which is off patent, it's a generic molecule. There are more than 100 brands trying to sell the same thing, and you can easily save 60-70% and get a better brand, mostly. So it's a very weird construct. It is not a efficient construct. If I trust, say, a global company that actually developed that molecule, I would often find that what my doctor wrote, the brand that my doctor wrote, is actually twice as expensive than the global leader of that molecule. So it's a very, very interesting inefficiency. So we created a very simple mobile app And that was, 1mg was never supposed to be it never supposed to be a business actually. It was just a transparency initiative. We called it Health Card Plus. We launched it in 2012 September as just creating a database of medicine so that patients can see everything about their medicine, side effects, interactions, how to use, etc., and have a conversation with their doctor that if I can, instead of whatever Harpal, Gurpal Pharma brand that you have given, I can take a Novartis or GSK and save 60%. Is that something that the doctor is okay with? So we just wanted that conversation to start. We wanted that transparency to come in. Of course, got lucky with the Satyamev Jayate episode happening soon after. So a generic suddenly became a buzzword. And what we saw was our app, it had zero marketing behind it. It literally took off. Now, why did it take off? Again, we struck a simple, we identified a simple pain point that the consumers were looking for transparency in healthcare. And they were actually going to multiple sources to see different ways that they can be comforted that whatever they are getting is at the right price, of the right quality, etc., etc. So we thought this is very interesting. Now, this app that we had developed, Health Card Plus, by 2014 end was by far the largest health app of India with zero marketing. We had more than one, at that time, early stages of the app ecosystem in India. For a very, very focused app, like medicine database is not really something that one expects to be very widely used. And here we were on Health Card Plus at that time at 1.5 million downloads. To give you context, the second largest health app in the country at that time was our main business, Health Card, at 50,000 downloads with all our marketing budget and support behind it. So we are clearly, something is happening. People are downloading Health Card Plus with a message that this is something that is important and interesting to them. Even today, so Health Card Plus, we spun it out of Health Card because I felt this is a platform that can solve a lot of these, what we initially wanted to solve for. It can be the platform that gives consumer all the information, products, services, transparency in healthcare, and maybe we can use this as the platform instead of how we had initially come in 2009 to build. So coming back to the topic of simplicity, I think there needs to be simplicity first in the thought process to identify the opportunity if it is real. If something is already simpler than your solution, then your solution will not work. So I think you have to make something easy for someone, whoever is your primary customer. Then the second thing is, when you start building out the organization or the business of actually executing on that simplicity, that part is super, super important. Because it's a very easy to understand thing that if there is friction in your design, then as you scale, that friction amplifies. And it becomes in every aspect of your organization, whether it is your business model. If there is even a little bit of misalignment at that you know at a small scale, scale it up 100 times, it will generate so much heat. That's what friction does. It will wear out the entire organization and your business model will not work. You have to make sure that it's a well-oiled machine from the very, very early stages. So how does it happen? Things have to align. It's very simple. All those things that you are doing need to be put together in a way that they can work together. Because if they are not in harmony, friction will come in. The second thing is your organization design. Exactly the same situation, where if your organization is designed not to scale, it's designed with friction. In early stages, you can see friction. Then when you scale it up, you will see a pretty hard thing to manage. It will not scale is the reality of it. And how does it happen? In the early stages, a lot of founders, everyone has been guilty of it at some point or the other. you don't think of organization design. Everybody is reporting to you in some way, shape, or form. A lot of people are, I think, reporting in cross systems, reporting to 2, 3, 4 people, taking instructions from multiple people. Works okay as long as it's a very small group. As you start scaling, you have to think a frictionless organization, so that, because very soon it becomes, you need to define people's contribution role and how they are going to align in this big machine. That's what it really starts becoming, and that friction starts showing very, very soon as well. So I think the cost of complexity is basically that the system will break down. At which point it does is the only question. And I would argue almost that the sooner it breaks down, the better, because we're all spending a lot of our time, money, resources on trying to build something. But what it means is this is the single most important problem to solve. Is your thought process clear? Who is your customer? A lot of businesses, it's almost logically very hard to understand why, but a lot of businesses fail for the simple reason that they cannot identify their customer. They don't know, am I building it for the doctor? I am building it for the hospital, for the consumer, for the pharmacy, for the vendor. Who is my primary customer? If you don't know, then a lot of your thought process, and when it goes down an organization, it will get massively confusing. I'll give you a very simple example. If I am building like what we started with, if I'm building a platform for doctors, very soon my entire organization will start thinking of, and should start thinking of, if the doctor is my customer, then how do I make this doctor more efficient and grow this doctor's practice? Now say I'm doing a doctor search platform. If the doctor is my customer, my incentive is to showcase my doctors that I want to give more business to. If I'm doing it for the consumer, my incentive is to build a platform that the consumer finds the most appropriate doctor for the consumer. Whose business or whose problem do I want to solve? I need to know. Because it cannot be that I go to the doctor and tell them I'm solving your problem and then try and create a platform that really doesn't do that, because that will create, again, discontent. Now, these are important questions to ask very early in the day. Who is my customer? What problem am I solving? And is my entire process, first of all, thought process, organizational design, systems, everything needs to be, and resource allocation needs to be aligned to just solving that simple issue. And every time, and in different times, you would need to think it through from different stakeholder perspectives. There would be certainly, for the business, your consumer is the primary stakeholder you're working for. The second extremely important lens is your team also needs to be, you need to see your team as a customer, and what do you need to solve for your organization and team. It needs to work for everybody working in the organization. Are you serving the needs of the people who are joining your venture because they believe in something? Is your organization actually living to that? Are you aligned to some kind of a thought process? I think this very, very simple word is probably, it's the most complex job an entrepreneur ever has. A lot of stakeholders, everybody getting bombarded with a lot of information. Do you have a simple proposition that solves a simple pain point? I think if you can figure that out, that's when I think businesses start becoming a lot of fun. They start scaling up themselves. They don't have to be pushed through. Just to give you some statistics today, on 1mg on a monthly basis, we have around 160 million page views from 10-12 million unique people every month. Why are they coming on the platform? Something has resonated. And I think if the message is simple, the scale up is actually efficient. It's very easy to push a well-oiled machine than it is to a machine whose bearings and all are kind of running out in different if the wheels are going in different direction and you try to push it with whatever, in our case, marketing, it doesn't really move forward in a good way. It just needs to be a well-aligned machine for push to even actually work in a meaningful way. So I think to just synthesize, I would say at least my personal experience over the last 8-9 years in the ecosystem is we've tried to do things in a lot of complicated ways, a lot of wayward ways, a lot of what seems like a easy shortcut. But looking back at the 5, 6, 8 years, the value that has gotten created is just sticking to the simple things that you need to solve for and building to solve for. So the sooner one can answer those questions, the better. And I wish everyone all the best in their journey. Thank you.